welcome everyone to this webinar from Finland on teaching sustainability and resilience in supply chains, from classroom simulations to real-world impact. We'll discuss sustainability and resilience as core management challenges in today's complex supply chain environment and look into the role of business simulations in developing the students' systemic understanding and their concrete decision-making capabilities that they'll need when facing real-world complexity. Our guest speakers today are Professor Marianne Jahre from Kühne Logistics University, Hamburg, Germany, and course instructor Andrés Ladino, also from Kühne Logistics University. They will be interviewed by the developer of RealGame Business Simulations, Dr. Timo Lainema. My name is Kirsi Lainema. Allow me briefly to introduce the structure of today's session. First, we'll show a short introduction video of the business simulation that was used on the course to support your understanding of today's content. After that, we'll dive into the discussion with our guests, followed by a questions and answers session. Feel free to post your questions to the chat, so we will take them up towards the end of the session. This session will be recorded. However, none of your personal information will be visible in the final recording.
Preparing students for real-world challenges calls for hands-on experience, already during their studies. At RealGame, we provide effective, innovative simulation games that empower educators, engage students, and drive meaningful learning outcomes. RealGame offers a diverse range of simulation games designed to enhance teaching across multiple fields, such as supply chain management, operations management, business, data analytics, and others. What sets RealGame apart? Our simulation games are more than just educational tools. They are holistic learning environments that connect business operations and the supply chain into a dynamic entity. Each decision has an impact on business and the market in real time, just like in real life. Students are challenged to think critically, solve problems, and apply theoretical knowledge in authentic business scenarios. Let's take a look inside RealGame. Our simulation environment is designed to deliver a seamless but comprehensive experience for both educators and students. RealGame integrates all major business functions and offers end-to-end visibility across a company's supply chain. With RealGame, business operations are transparent. Students interact continuously with the simulation environment while time is running, seeing how each decision causes ripple effects throughout the business. This clarity helps them understand operational cause and effect, not just outcomes. Educators can take advantage of the versatile learning materials, track student teams' progress, and facilitate engaging discussions. But it doesn't stop there. With a built-in business intelligence tool that collects data across dozens of key performance indicators, student teams can track their actions and decisions in the game, gaining full visibility into how their team's performance develops day by day. This means that performance isn't just evaluated at the end. It's continuously visible, giving students a chance to adapt, reflect, and improve in real time. They can benchmark their team to the others and gain practical insights that prepare them for real-world, data-driven decision-making. Based on the student team's actions, RealGame generates detailed business reports, making it a powerful tool for analyzing data. Analyzing real business performance develops essential skills needed professionally. And this is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in the RealGame environment. Want to experience it for yourself? Let us know when you want to explore how RealGame can benefit your teaching.
So next, I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speakers today, who will bring complementary perspectives of the topic today. So Professor Dr. Marianne Jahre Dean of Research and Professor of Operations Management at Kühne Logistics University, is a leading expert in supply chain management with extensive research and teaching experience in sustainability, resilience, and humanitarian logistics. We are also joined by Andrés Ladino, who has almost 2 decades of experience in international supply chain management, both in the private and public sector. Andrés has been the course instructor teaching sustainability and resilience using the RealGame Sustainable Supply Chain Management Simulation. And now let's hear it from our guests. Go ahead, Timo.
Thank you, Kirsi, and welcome and many thanks to you, Marianne and Andrés, for joining our webinar today. My first question is to Marianne. So here we go. When you look at today's global supply chains, what makes sustainability and resilience such central management challenges?
Thank you, Timo, and thank you for inviting me for doing this. So I think I'll just go directly to how I see this. So on the one hand, we have supply chains that become increasingly global. There are many actors involved, both private and public, across diverse continents. And this leads to these long, complicated supply chains with lack of upstream transparency. Then in addition to that, just-in-time cost efficiency considerations for decades have been successful, but they've also resulted in lean supply chains with few buffers, which means that the supply chains have become more vulnerable to disruptions and resulting in lack of resilience. On the other hand, we see that risks are increasing. They are more unpredictable. It's related to geopolitical complexity, trade barriers, and natural disasters, and they all impact these supply chains. So my next point then, if we look at the sustainability aspects, we know that logistics activities, they contribute a lot to climate change, which in turn increase the risks. Could be natural, it could be geopolitical as well, fighting for resources, as we see many examples of. So it means it's important to develop environmentally sustainable supply chains. But sustainability, as we know, is also more than the environmental aspects, right? It's about the social dimension and it's about long-term economical dimension. And both of these are also highly related to risks. So in this landscape, very complex one, making the right decisions is very challenging. Many actors are involved. It's very hard to foresee consequences for other parts of the supply chain, both in terms of the impact that disruptions might have, and when it comes to what are the right solutions. What may look like a good decision from one perspective might have bad unintended consequences in other parts of the supply chain or in other sustainability dimensions. So an understanding of the system and the potential trade-offs is necessary. And this requires really competent management with a holistic perspective in the long term. So I did my PhD in environmental logistics back in 1995. This was long before we used the term sustainability. Now I've done research and taught supply chain risk management for the past 15 years. And I see these two aspects coming together. So we see more research now on what we can term sustainable supply chain risk management. We see more publications coming up, and I think we will see this will increase in importance.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Marianne. I think it is very interesting what you say about sustainability and disruption management coming together and how this affects supply chain management education. Having given this context, what do students need to understand beyond frameworks and metrics to effectively manage sustainable and resilient supply chains?
I mean, I've been teaching then environmental logistics from early 2000, right? When we talk about concepts like resilience and sustainability, they are kind of vague concepts, maybe a little bit philosophical, idealistic terms, right? We can discuss them on the broad level. Obviously, frameworks and metrics are important, but the students need to learn how they can be operationalized, how to use them, how to apply them. So I think that's really, and we will come to that, really what RealGame can offer here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, perfect. So let's then discuss how to apply knowledge in practice. So why is experiential and simulation-based learning particularly effective for teaching sustainability and resilience?
I mean, it's obviously related that it becomes more concrete. One learn how to use these concepts. But what we saw in our course was that it simply gives them a lot more interest in the subject. They enjoy playing games. It provides more concrete, explicit understanding than, for example, case discussions, which I've used for 40 years. And I'm not saying that we should quit using case studies. They are important to kind of discuss, on the one hand, on the other hand. But what simulation-based learning can complement nicely with is that one has to make choices. One has to make decisions rather than staying with this on the one hand or the other reflections, often based on case discussions. So here students get the opportunity of learning by doing. They can experiment and test how their decisions impact the different sustainability dimensions. They learn also, which is what we saw, how disruptions may favor some strategies over other strategies. And I think maybe Andrés will get more into this. And also how this might impact, for example, environmental sustainability or long-term profit. So they get a very clear picture of these potential trade-offs and that their decisions have consequences. I also think that the focus in RealGame on sales and operations planning is a very useful tool for learning and practicing basic supply chain management. And then we can add additional complexity, sustainability, risk and disruption management. So it doesn't all become a blur that we have to take everything into consideration in one discussion or in one case, but you can actually add, and I think that's a key point from my perspective.
Yes. Well, I think your arguments are strong and solid. So then let's look into the future. What mindsets and capabilities will define successful supply chain leaders in the coming decade?
Okay, so our vision at KLU, we say our key is to lead with an operations mindset. And what is this? Well, our profound belief is that it's not only supply chain leaders that should have such a mindset. Anyone who wants to succeed as a leader in the future should have an understanding of operations and operate what we call an operations mindset. So the way we teach it is that it combines 3 dimensions. Sound knowledge, analytical thinking, we call that ability or the head, with values and a sense of responsibility. This is what we call attitudes or the heart, and how to implement things in concrete terms. And this is what we term then action or the hand. So heart, head, and hand. That's key. Logistics and supply chain management for me is the epitome of systemic thinking about adaptability, about responsibility. And these are 3 key capabilities I see for the future. If we look, for example, back to the pandemic, it became quite clear that managers with a background in logistics, they were better able to anticipate the crisis and the potential consequences, reallocating resources, reacting quickly, and think more long-term. So for me, this is sort of a really compact way of what I think in terms of mindset and capabilities. But as I said, it's not only for supply chain leaders, it's for business in general, and also for the public sector and organizations.
Yeah.
So finally, everyone will understand that logistics is the most important thing in the world, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. So this is actually very good argumentation for supply chain management as a basic discipline, at least in business studies. So it should be taught to everybody. Okay, so Marianne, you have now highlighted how complex and interconnected sustainability and resilience are in supply chain management. So turning that complexity into learning is not trivial. Is there anything you would like to tell about the course you had in Kühne?
Yeah, I'll give you a brief summary of the course. So this was a new course for me, developed in a completely new setting. After having taught at BI for 40 years, I suddenly found myself in a new situation. This is a course for Master of Science students. And I decided to develop something that combines supply chain risk management and sustainability. And I also added the dose of operations mindset in the course. So that was kind of the starting point. So I had 45 lectures or 45 lectures of 45 minutes at my disposal. The class was very heterogeneous. Some had a lot of logistics and supply chain management background, others nothing. These were all mostly young students, I would say. So a few with the practical experience, but not too many. And obviously this is a challenge when you want to present something as complex as we talk about here. And for me, the real game really became the solution because I could train them in the basics of supply chain management. And this was also fun for those who had all the basics, right? Because they could play the basics. So that was a really, really key for me. And then we could add sustainability and then introducing a disruption. So in a way that it was fun for everyone. It was not like someone sitting there, oh, I know this, right? This I've heard before. And it was not students who would say, I don't understand anything because we started off in a too high level. But my experience and my firm view is that whenever you have a game in class, you have to combine it with frameworks and concepts and case discussions because not everything can be, in a way they have to understand what they are practicing, right? So you have to introduce what they're practicing before they start practicing. So I chose to start with 3 quite heavy sessions, 4 hours each, introducing first sustainability with the triple bottom line. Then I went to supply chain risk management, the basic terms and concepts there, and then sustainable supply chain management and decarbonizing logistics, and then kind of combining what is then this thing we call supply chain risk management. I use case studies for discussion in class and compulsory hand-in assignments, then followed the 4 game sessions in a row, right? And then I concluded with the session more in theory on collaboration in supply chain risk management. So the overall learning goals in our course were based on the operations mindset. We wanted to provide them with some abilities, also how to do things, so the action, and then attitudes in terms of thinking about more the general competence and reflective practice. So that was sort of in essence the course that I put together. And also with good help of Andrés, who can go more into the game, and I know he will now.
Okay. So Marianne was referring to BI, that means Norwegian Business School, where you worked before. Yeah. So thank you very much, Marianne. Let's talk, and Marianne will be here taking part in the discussion after the presentation also. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So let's next talk the simulation sessions. And Andrés, you were preparing for the real game sessions with students. What kind of learning goals did you have in mind?
Okay, thank you, Timo, for your invitation. And just to answer to your questions, when I started to prepare the real game sessions, my main learning goal was to help students to integrate this core process, the core concept of logistics with real practices, as already was said by Marianne. So when I was preparing, I was playing before the course, I quickly realized that these simulation games helps to understand how is the interaction in the real context with all this process. For example, the supply orders, the inventory decisions, the production, and the transport choices. So normally people know this theoretically or this by silos because they become very experts, but they don't interact or they don't integrate with others. So something very important is that I wanted the students to experience that these decisions have to be made in work teams, and they have to make it profitable, so their own company, but they also have to account by sustainability. And this trade-off is not very easy, and sometimes it could be superfluous issues, but I wanted that it could be part of everyday management, so they understand that they have to make decisions as an everyday process. And the second goal that I put myself, it was from moving from this theory to practices, but especially when they are working with teams, with other people. So previously, I make a very fast lecture of 20 minutes of sales and operation planning concepts and these real routines. And I wanted the students to work in teams as they were in teams of high performance logistics organizations. And they have to make these decisions under pressure with incomplete information and with real consequence at the end. So these simulations force them to think about agility, alignment, and all the effects that each decision takes at the end. So it was very difficult to achieve this only by lectures alone or by case study. And these simulations helps to do this context, to put all the students into this context.
Yeah, this is very interesting, and I think this is well aligned with the goals Marianne mentioned. So what did the students regard as the key learnings? So would you have any comments or observations from the students?
One of the strongest takeaways that the students consistently mention, and they mention on the class and also in their reports, was the importance of having a clear plan and a strategy. So they were making before the sessions all these strategies and planning, but at the same time, during the session, they have to adapt that plan based on what it was actually happening in the systems. So they learned that planning alone was not enough. They have to remain flexible. They have to check indicators. They have to check all the data and maybe being this skill of being data driven, constantly monitor indicators, all the indicators like service level, inventory, and backlogs, and to decide when and how to intervene and how to interact with other students, with other colleagues. A very concrete example, I will say that comes from one of the teams. They had a well-designed reorder point, for example, in the paper, in the theory, but under time pressure during the execution, they misunderstood how the automatic reorder system worked. And at the end, they was not treated as a reorder point. They was treated as a safety stock. And as a result, they were frankly running out of critical raw materials. So the production stops and sales collapses. So it was very interesting to see, even they have in theory the knowledge, they were not able to operate very well under pressure. Another comment that I will say also from the students, we have an evaluation at the end of the course, and we had a 6.2/7. So it was really well, one of the best evaluations course at the university. And the comments of the students was that it was a very dynamic course full of surprises.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Andrés. I think the misunderstanding you described is quite common among students. So this was a really illustrative case where simulations can help in understanding the concepts and their use. We are running out of time. I still have a couple of questions to Andrés. Maybe we go quite quickly through your slides. So then next I would like to ask, how does this course develop work-life skills and future competencies for the students? Can you give practical examples?
Yes, Timo. This course develops work-life skills mainly by placing our students in situations that are very close to real and operational environments. They have to work in teams, they have to communicate, they have to divide their roles, they have to make the decisions, and they have to be accountable for everything, for financial, for savings, for sustainability. So they have to, for example, they have to make some trade-offs under very high uncertainty. At the beginning, many teams started by optimization of only the cost or the CO2 also, the sustainability. And then when the disruption comes, it quickly experienced service failures and under these disruptions. Yeah. So also I will add something that this is like emotional learning. This experience was very powerful for students because it showed them how conceptual circumstances combined with pressure can quickly translate into real problems, into real operational and financial consequences. And normally when I think in my background, I played RealGame, I played Fresh Connection, and I really remember these games. And in this case, it was very different because everyone was very engaged and very emotional, sometimes doing, for example, panic buys and doing other things that they later have to understand what they did.
Yeah. Okay, great. That is interesting. we have now some of your slides. I would recommend that you concentrate on the results from the simulation, maybe describing the disruption you had in the simulation, and maybe also some words about the different KPIs you used in assessing the student performance. So
okay. Okay, that's great. So I will concentrate in this sustainable strategy. So we measure all of them: sustainable, economic, and the disruption management. So for example, for explaining this, go to the next slide that we monitor the sustainable. So here you can see the business intelligence that there are several indicators, and we are monitoring the average CO2 of the final production unit. In this case, was a solar panel. So at the beginning, we played from old year, so it was very normally you cannot do that, but we designed it in 4 sessions, and we played because all the students was very engaged. We played from the second session at the highest speed. They were asking, can we do it faster? So they were really engaged. And at the beginning, all the teams begins with the same carbon footprint. They started, as you see, have a peak and then reducing their emissions and having more sales. But somehow, when you see this inflection point in the middle of the graph, was the disruption. And the disruption was that we take out all the European suppliers. So the one that has lower footprints when take out of the simulation. And they have to then start to deal with this kind of disruption.
Yeah, Andrés, if I may add to here, so each line here represents the performance of one of the student companies, and you seem to have had 6 student teams.
Yes.
Yes, and the x-axis is the time scale. So you started from the beginning of the year and you ended in the end until the end of December. So it shows the development over the whole 1 year development in the companies.
I just have to add a comment. Some students, even in Germany, tend to come late for class. I don't know if you recognize that. So Andrés simply said, I'll start the game 8:30. If you're not here in time, you lose out. And they were all very, very timely after that. That was really fun to see.
That is in RealGame also. The supply chains are not stopping on 24/7 days.
Shall we move to the next one?
Okay, go to the next one.
Yes. So now we are discussing the KPIs you used in assessing the student teams.
You can point to all of them because there are different indicators. So, for example, and this is only 5 indicators that I take you, for example, in the game. You can go for other indicators. And I didn't want to say, okay, the best strategy was the team that has the lowest carbon footprint at the end of the year. So I also want to know what was the carbon footprint minimum in the whole year, or who was the fastest to do the decarbonization in the fastest way, or also who has the earliest peak decarbonization point and started to do very early. So I take different indicators, and at the end, I average the same and go to the next slide, and we point like a point, and we can decide it. Okay, there was 3 teams that do the best strategy. Not only one indicator, but as you see, many indicators. And it was the same with economic and the same with disruption and sustainability. So there was these three dimensions we measure.
Thank you so much, Marianne and Andrés. Next, it is time for questions from the audience. So we do understand if you need to go, but if you don't have to go, please join us and in the discussion. And but before before discussing the questions, I'd like to introduce Professor Daniel Chiksand also, who is using RealGame Business Simulation on his courses at Birmingham Business School. Daniel is also here to answer your questions if you have any. So you can ask all the 3 teachers who have a RealGame experience. So, Kirsi.
Yes, lovely. Many thanks, Marianne and Andrés. I believe this was very exciting and interesting for many of the participants. Now, we've received quite many questions to the chat, so I believe we can take them from the first to the last, and please do post your questions, and at this point, apologies for exceeding our time, but of course this is a very interesting topic, so I understand that the discussion is very lively. So wanted to know if there is a free version that he could use on his course, and also if you can change import tariffs up and down like we see in today's world. I believe this question is for you, Timo.
Yes, thank you. We can have a demonstration with you, so to show you what you can do with RealGame, and then we can discuss the course application. So, and what can be modeled, in a way you can include tariffs in the simulation. It's kind of an added cost in the delivery methods. So that can be simulated in RealGame.
Yes, thank you, Timo. Then another question, which elements or phases of resilience are embedded or can be designed in this tool? And so are there metrics for sustainability or resilience that are embedded in the simulation? So this again, I believe, goes maybe more to Timo, but also if Andrés, Marianne, you have insights into how to incorporate this.
I could maybe start, and you have to correct me here, Andrés. I think in terms of resilience, it depends. I mean, what do we include in that term, right? But one of those aspects of resilience is how quickly you recover, right? Your supply chain from a disruption. So this was one of the metrics you could use, right? I mean, how quickly do you actually change your strategy? So it matches with the new reality in a way. I guess that could be one example of such a. And I also have to say that once Timo and I started to talk about the game, I knew that this was a sustainability game, but I wanted disruptions, right? And we discussed, and you said there isn't really, but then we realized when we started talking that we could just make a disruption. So by using the parameters in the game, and we realized we can pick a lot of different ways of simulating a disruption. It could be one in demand, it could be in the supply, it could be different types of supply and transport providers, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I can add to that because actually when I've used the course on both my MSc and MBA programs for general kind of operations and supply chain, including, and what we find is at the beginning, a lot of our students try to have a very lean process with keeping stock to a minimum. And you as the instructors have great fun because you can actually create disruptions as you like. So I suddenly create scenarios and I put on that there's a supply shortage, say, of memory in one of the simulations. And what you see is then in terms of resilience, a lot of that affects production. So they shut down, they can't produce. And it's those teams that are able to respond more quickly and actually be able to maybe adapt their kind of their strategy that are more resilient and get back online quicker. So that's another example.
Thank you, Marianne.
And I will
add
something.
Yes.
I will add something because the question was which elements or phase of resilience. An element that is not inside in the real game is how do you teach. For example, in the first phase, they play really lean, as Daniel say, optimizing and reducing costs. And also, I was playing a role that when a supplier was run out of inventory, I also improved their suppliers and giving confidence. For example, as a government said, okay, there is no problem, you can trust on the system, and there was nothing happening. So also, like not giving problems. But at the end of when the disruption started, I changed for example, what I was saying. They was asking, oh, this supplier is running out of inventory. And I say, I don't know. So it was a total disruption and they have to deal with that. And after that, it was a long-term disruption. Say, okay, we are fighting for more suppliers. What we can do? I don't know. So the uncertainty become really real in that sense. So it's not like all the simulation or all the real games, the software gives you is how do you teach the resilience?
That's a good point. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Andrés.
Then we have another question. Supply chain management decisions have consequences in your game. Will you receive feedback from the program or of what you could have done better?
I can take this, I guess. So there are tens and tens of different KPIs, and the students have access to RealGame Business Intelligence. So they can benchmark their performance to the competitors. So I think this is the primal tool you use in assessing your performance. But then, of course, the student assignments are extremely important here, because I think the real learning happens when the students start thinking about their performance and comparing to their competitors. So why did we do better? Why did we do worse? So they start looking for these cause effects, looking different KPIs, and understanding also the dynamics in the business processes.
I would like also to add that I think this is less important, to be honest, to give them kind of what you should have done, because it all depends on what the others do, right? Just in real life, it's dynamic, both in time and space. So I think I think it's good that it doesn't come up with if you'd done this, you would have. This is part of the learning experience for the students, that they can actually calculate what if we'd done that, what would then have happened, right? Given what we now know, but of course you don't know beforehand what the others are going to do. If there is a disruption.
I can add to that. I mean, on my courses, I build in a learning reflection. So it's actually assessed. So all the way through, they're having to put down the decisions they've made and the impact that's had. So for instance, on capacity, on sustainability, all the different metrics you want them to explore. And as you quite rightly point out, you can't have a fixed answer, because your strategy depends upon also what else is happening in the marketplace. But it's that reflection on the decisions and making the link to, let's say, the course material to some of the key concepts, which I think is the most powerful learning, and reflecting it to real life as well.
Well, I can definitely sign under that you have to have these reflection notes, because students need to work on what did we do? What did we learn from it? So we had compulsory hand-ins after every session, and then they put everything together and could revise, right? And then handed in a summary report.
That sounds pedagogically really robust and effective for the learning.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you all. So there is another question. Is there a way to use the tool for courses with up to 350 students?
You can have roughly 120 students in one session. The limit is not technical, but rather how the teacher manages this amount of students. So if you have 350 students, you would have 3 parallel sessions. So it's more about teacher resources than the limits of the system.
So from the pedagogic point of view, it's feasible to limit the number of students to not overload the teacher and to keep the events in the simulation game or session running nicely.
Yep.
I can add something on that, because I think that the planning of the course is very important. For example, we have many sessions with Marianne, how to design these sessions, how to design the disruptions. And something that was very important is that she put, okay, you are totally in charge of all these sessions. So you are the instructor and you have to do everything. So that was very good, because she focused on the theoretical, on the case studies, on all the concepts, and then I focus on the sessions of the real game. So, for example, I would say that I can say, as Kirsi and Timo say, 120. You can run it in 3 parallel sessions with 3 instructors, and then make like a context. For example, the 3 teams that want on the 3 sessions go to a final, and then you only play one sessions, another running with the 3 better teams. But then, and the others are engaged on seeing what is happening. Also, they have to somehow to analyze what is happening as a public. And also, when you have too many students, I would say that you can run asynchronized. So not during the sessions. We decided with Marianne, it's only going to be in the session. So the 3 hours that we have, we only played on the sessions. When you have so many students, you can play 24 hours, and every student has like for example, there are 4 roles. So the procurement, the production guy, the delivery, and the financial controller. So maybe one role can be 4 people, and these 4 people are running all the time. So you can put it like, what I see in RealGame is you can decide it in different ways, and it's very open and very flexible.
Oh, yes, thank you, Andrés. I believe you're talking about shift work.
Yes, but inside the teams, not inside the real game.
Yes. So that the teams could work in shifts. Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Thank you. So there is a question: is there any option to not only focus on supply chain management, but also using the game engine to model the influence of decisions to a production use case?
I'm not quite sure if I understand the question correctly, but you can automate some functions in real game companies. You can automate the purchasing, the customer deliveries, and the production line operation. So in a way, the simulation becomes kind of a simulation engine and not a game anymore that much. So if this is the case, then I would say yes.
Yes. Also, I believe if the learning goal is to understand how production works, real game works in this sense as well.
Yep.
Okay, then we have a question about the sustainability aspects. Beyond emissions from logistics, does it include indicators related to water, energy, or environmental impact of products?
Mm-hmm. By the way, we will be answering these questions as long as we have people online. So, yeah, real game sustainable supply chain management concentrates on the carbon emissions from the whole supply chain, from procurement to customer deliveries. So these other topics, they need to be linked to the simulation with the discussions and maybe kind of a small cases. But I would say that real game produces an extremely illustrative environment to connect these additional topics in the business context. So that's how I think about it.
Okay, thank you, Timo. Next question. Is the focus on your game sales and operations planning short term, or do you consider reconfiguration of your supplier base, such as de-risking mid-long term planning issue as well?
Well, I would say that when a real game is clock operated, and it means that when the students are new with the simulation, you run it very slowly. So one simulation hour might take like 30 seconds. But as the students start understanding the business processes, you increase the clock speeds. So in that sense, we start with these short-term decisions, but then gradually move to look at the longer-term effects in the supply chain. But reconfiguration of your supplier base, you can include these kind of things like introducing new suppliers and then asking the students to assess the different suppliers. I was thinking that Daniel might have something to say to this.
I can add that, because what you can do is you can change the kind of scenario midway through. So for instance, at the beginning, I don't have sustainability as a key factor to differentiate them in the marketplace. So they set up their logistics and their procurement based on typically a cost trade-off with quality. And then what I do is I say, well, actually the market's changed, and I upload a scenario where now sustainability is now critical, and I then turn on the function in the sustainable simulation. And that means they've got to literally stop and rethink their whole strategy, from both logistics to also production in terms of whether they use renewables, but also to their choice of suppliers as well. And as Timo says, I can then add in additional suppliers to add more complexity if I want to. So I think that the simulation is designed in a way that you can design your own kind of experience based upon what you want to teach and how you want to teach it.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And then can I just add, because I think this is a key point compared to many other games that introduces all the complexity at the same time. So if you introduce, you have to think about risk, you have to think about sustainability, and you have to think about profit. Is sort of the first session. It becomes and then it's hard to come up with the decision as well, right? So that's the beauty of this game, I think, because you add that complexity, which links back to my comment about you can also teach quite complex supply chain management to students who have never really heard about supply chain management before.
Yeah.
And that's something that we as teachers like, because we often have these heterogeneous classes.
Thank you, Marianne. That was very well put. So this actually, next question relates to the same aspect in a sense. Does your tool / game offer different scenarios, such as proposed by Gen AI, that the students can choose from as well?
Yeah, RealGame doesn't work exactly like this. So in a way, all the teams, all the students, they live in the same universe. So you can introduce scenarios, but then it is present to all students in the session. And of course, the teacher can use the AI to think about different scenarios and then implement them, whether it's about supply, demand, or delivery methods. Yes.
Yes. So the scenarios are generated by the teacher rather than by the students, and of course related to the learning objectives. So they need to have a purpose, right, in the flow of the game.
I think also, can I add to that? It's just, there was a question before about, is it just have to be supply chain? It doesn't. It can be data analytics, because you've got lots of data that's generated. So some people could use it to just purely generate. The game is less of the experience. It's more about how you use the data and analyze it. I'm working with Timo and the team at the moment about how we can use the simulation to look at crisis management. So I'm teaching an MSc course. They know nothing about supply chain, but I'm going to be using the model to create teams and talk about leadership in crisis. So I will introduce the crisis, which happens to be, say, a disruption of supply chain, but we're going to automate most of the elements of the actual, I suppose, the operational side of it. And therefore, the focus is now on leadership, communication, and I will break down the gameplay with lots of assessments, lots of links to the theory to do with leadership. Yeah, so I think it's very flexible.
Yes, thank you, Daniel, for pointing that out, and especially the way that the simulation game can operate as an environment for highlighting other aspects as well than mere supply chain management or operations management. Many business students that are not majoring in management accounting or supply chain management find sometimes difficult to understand how KPIs can be used for analyzing and improving performance. So for these students, RealGame works as an illustration of a business environment where they see actually how these KPIs are formed and what kind of actions contribute to certain outcomes. So depending on the learning objectives again, and of course the time the teacher wants to use for simulation gaming, you can pick many learning topics and illustrate them with RealGame. So we have quite many thank you notes here. Thank you. And then comparing your tool with other simulations games like the beer game, Fresh Connection, etc. What is different or better?
I can answer that. For example, the beer game is only on inventory, so you get this at the beginning, certainly chain of demand, and then you see all the ripple effects, but only on inventory, and you try the teams that don't communicate between them, don't coordinate, don't collaborate, and after that you can do it. Now you can coordinate, you can collaborate. Then, for example, in the Fresh Connection is more complex, but also it's just to make it profitable, and then only on cost or something like on not else. Here is like a very flexible, very unique. I was surprised because at the beginning, okay, I will run another supply chains, but it was at the beginning very complete with all the process of supply, productions, inventory management, and deliveries. So it's like the real game, the real operation of a company, but also with dealing with benchmark with other companies running for resources. And also all the business intelligence are like opens. When you go to and working to a company, sometimes you don't know what to see, what to monitor with indicators. And sometimes you have to decide, okay, I'm going to implement a new indicator with the SAP information, with the business that this company has. And then you start to develop that. I found the same in this game. So I have a lot of information. And at the beginning, I also didn't know what to do. And I can decide as instructor, okay, I will focus on this disruption, on this process, on this concept. So it's quite open. It's very open. So you can teach for everything, for disruption, sustainability, core concepts, leaderships, as Daniel said. So it's very flexible.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Andrés. And if I very briefly add, the main difference is that RealGame is clock operated, because when I build it, I wanted that the students see the processes evolve. So RealGame advances in 1 hour cycles, whereas most of the other simulations are turn-based. So you create kind of a budget for the simulation, and then you get the results from it. So it's kind of a black box model. But I wanted to make RealGame transparent with the processes.
And I guess I don't know all these other games, but I mean, should be also fairly easy to run it online, right? So I'm planning to now use it in Vietnam. We have established a campus in Saigon, and I'd like to use it. And we are thinking, if possible, we could have students here in Hamburg as well as in Vietnam, and they could work, but asynchronous because of the time difference. So you could actually make that work as well.
I really like this scenario.
So international collaboration as well. A true example of how it is to work in global teams currently. Okay, thank you everybody for spending so much time with us. It's been an interesting discussion. We'd like to keep the conversation going, and so let us know when it's the right time to revisit this with you, and hope to see you next time. So thank you everybody, and have a nice rest of the week.